Welcome to LSB Feasters Radio Channel and Travel Corner, where we keep great radio from the past alive. And today we're going to Pittsburgh in 1020 KDKA. KDKA on November 2nd, 2020 celebrated its 100th anniversary. They began commercial broadcasting back on November 2nd, 1920. They began as an experimental station in 1916, and they began running commercials back in November of 2020. Changed the whole industry, even though there really wasn't much of an industry just yet. After 100 years, KDKA is still one of the top stations in Pittsburgh, and all day on November 2nd, they celebrated that 100th anniversary. So here we've got some of the highlights of that 100th birthday celebration on KDKA. On this Aircheck, you will hear interviews from Trish Beatty, Jack Bogut, as well as Roy Fox. If you enjoy what you hear, feel free to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel too if you like, and after you do, smack that bell, and you will be notified whenever we post anything new. All right, let's join the celebration. KDKA Pittsburgh turns 100.
We interrupt your regular programming at this time so that we can celebrate our 100th birthday in grand style. I'm Larry Richert.
And good morning, I'm Kevin Battle. Thank you for joining us today.
It is a special day for everyone in the region, I think worldwide.
It's a birthday for us all. I mean, a unifying message began 100 years ago today. Broadcasting, commercial broadcasting for the very first time, brought people right here into Pittsburgh from all parts of the world.
It was November 2nd, 1920. Dr. Frank Conrad, who was an engineer for Westinghouse, they had officially received the first commercial radio station license and prepared to give the election returns of the Harding-Cox elections. And it's interesting because the mantra back then was return to normalcy.
Pretty much the mantra this year, too, 100 years later. And they had just coming off a big pandemic and sort of dealing with the same things that we're dealing with today.
Amazing. And they gave the results in real time for the first time ever in the history of this country or the world. And it wasn't soon after that everybody jumped on board, but it was KDK that did it first.
The first baseball broadcast, the first live church service broadcast, and the first election results were broadcast 100 years ago tonight. And it was a rainy evening in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania 100 years ago. And this morning, Larry, it's a snowy morning of all things. A slight glaze of snow, a frost of snow on the ground, some flurries in the air.
And not surprisingly, one of the most important things that people could receive over the radio was up-to-date weather information in their homes for the first time in history. And so farmer reports became really important. Then music, and of course, news continued from the very first day through today.
And a few years ago, Larry, I was working at a car wash in Homestead, Pennsylvania, listening to you flip the switch from a music-based format for KDKA to what we are today, a talk format.
And I remember that day well because we chose the song carefully, Don McLean's American Pie, the day the music died, and we made national news with that story. But I'm thinking way back to Dr. Frank Conrad, how fun it must have been for them in that little shack that they built just on top of the roof in East Pittsburgh, just for the election broadcast. And as they gave the results, people were starting for the first time ever to call in, and they didn't have enough to talk continuously. So they cranked up the Victrola, played music, and some of the guys brought in banjos. So where's your banjo?
It's in the car. I'll go get it during Paul Rasmussen's news break. But yeah, what an amazing thing. You know, we were talking to people, you had interviewed people from Foxburg, Pennsylvania, who thought it was amazing that they could actually hear what was happening in Pittsburgh just an hour and a half to the south. That was 100 years ago.
We have a full show planned, which will include many of the voices you have heard for many years here, including Jack Bogut, who was in the air chair when we reached our 50th. And as we enter the next 100 years of broadcasting, Entercom Pittsburgh completes the circle, sharing KDK on every platform to serve our listeners, our sponsors, and our community. After 100 years on AM, KDKA is now at 100.1 FM, AM 1020, and worldwide at kdkaradio.com. You're listening to the voice of Pittsburgh. This is KDKA 100.1 FM and AM 1020 for the first time in history as we start our second century together, gentlemen. I'm Larry Richert.
And good morning. I'm Kevin Battle. We've been creating and innovating broadcast for 100 years here on AM 1020, and now we're on 100.1 FM as well as online, kdkaradio.com and the fabulousradio.com app. In case you missed the big intro, you can always rewind it and hear it. And we're broadcasting for a second time for a second century here on AM 1020 KDKA.
Is it just me, or does Paul Rasmussen look different on FM?
It's much clearer.
His hair parted in the middle.
He's got dungarees on.
Good morning, Paul.
Hi, guys.
You know what? It's great that we're here for this historical moment because we, like those guys in the little shack, will be remembered someday as, oh, yeah, it was those guys. And there'll be a picture that'll be slightly out of focus, and they'll see, you know, what you can see now at kdkaradio.com/watch, because we have a camera in here, another innovation and wrinkle. I thought it would be fun. We're going to hear from Jack Bogut, who sat in this air chair on the 50th anniversary. We're going to hear from Roy Fox, one of the innovative talk show hosts. Trish Beatty is going to join us. When I first started at KDK, I signed in, it was December of 1988. So I'm heading into 32 years with KDKA, radio and TV. I sat in the air chair between the late, great John Cigna, who did 18 years in the morning, and Trish Beatty when we were playing music. Until the day the music died.
Absolutely. And I was sitting at a car wash vacuuming a vehicle. It was a Buick. It was a gold Buick. I was vacuuming it, and Larry flipped the switch from music to talk.
All right, we found the number one hit song from 1920. Are you ready? Now, I got to actually hand crank this.
Uh-oh.
That was it. People were jamming to that. Imagine the first time it came over the radio into your living room for the most part. The radios were pretty big, and they set them up to be the entertainment center in a room like you would set up your television today.
Yeah, it was the center of the household. That and the kitchen. That's where everybody gathered, right around the radio. And most of America was listening to AM 1020 KDKA at that point 100 years ago. Amazing.
The first hit song, I think it was called Moonlight in Montana. Maybe I'm wrong. Since Paul's from Montana. And you know what we skipped over this morning? The real obvious big story outside of our birthday, and we're very excited about that, is the fact that it snowed.
Yes.
I have almost an inch of snow on my deck, and I live in the North Hills. 520 at KDKA Radio. It's the Brewer Airport Toyota News Desk. That's where we find Paul Rasmussen.
The Westmoreland County coroner has been called to a house fire in Mount Pleasant Township this morning. We'll have an update from Lindsay Ward at 5:30 on KDKA Radio.
And I want to thank the president of Duquesne University, Dr. Ken Gormley, for his passion and his team at Duquesne on the history of KDKA Radio. And they had a great article yesterday in Sunday's Post-Gazette where they have a picture of the first broadcast and some details I think that people would really find fun about our history.
He's a terrific historian.
He's a brilliant man. And we'll talk to him this week about the things that his team discovered in the 100th anniversary. And one of the things that I thought people would appreciate is the first radio commercial. Do you know what it was? It was a trade deal. And it was Dr. Frank Conrad had to go through so much music to put on the air before he went on officially with a election return.
He needed some filler music, so he played the popular tunes of the day.
But he was doing some stuff at home on his garage roof for what was basically ham operators that had a crystal set. So he had such a following going that he said he'd go broke if he had to buy records, to keep the variety up. So he made a deal with the owner of Hamilton Shop on Wood Street in Wilkinsburg. He would get free records in exchange for announcing the name of the store on his programs. And from this deal was born the concept of radio commercials.
Wow.
How about that?
And that is how we all get paid.
I have the Portnoy thing here for you. So you want me to slip it into your folder, or you want to play it, or?
Yeah, play it now.
Okay, here
Let's
it comes.
live it up. It's our birthday.
Here's what it sounds like.
It began simply enough.
This is KDKA.
This 1944 recreation honors the start of a business that would change the world.
We shall now broadcast the election returns.
Warren G. Harding's victory over James Cox was the big news on November 2nd, 1920.
Yes, sir. The election is conceded by Cox to Harding.
Other stations with experimental beginnings claim to have been first, but KDKA Pittsburgh holds America's oldest commercial license, a proud tradition of service continuing into its second century.
This is KDKA Radio.
Stephen Portnoy, CBS News.
Wow,
That's pretty
very
classy. Yeah.
That's very nice.
I was coming down the road on the exit ramp there, and I thought, wow, this is great.
You don't know how many people over the years that we've interviewed. I'm starting my 20th year in the morning, so just imagine the number of people we've interviewed over that stretch, and how many big talent people would call in, and they'd say, KDKA, wow. And knew the history.
Most recently, I interviewed Newt Gingrich and John Oates, who were both amazed that they were talking to KDKA. John Oates, Hall & Oates. Unbelievable.
John Cigna sat in this air chair for 18 years in the morning, 10 at night doing talk before that, and he followed Jack Bogut. Of course, he passed away 9 years ago. And Barbara Boylan, who did the news here for decades, retired several years ago. But she put this one little story. I thought you'd appreciate hearing Barbara's voice and John Cigna.
John joined KDKA Radio in March 1973, hosting the 9 p.m. to midnight talk show. In 1983, he moved to Morning Drive, and Cigna and the K-Team was born. Last September, John talked to KDKA's Robert Mangino about one of his most memorable April Fool's Day pranks, the UFO crash in North Park. A coworker called to report the crash, then pretended to be a military captain en route to the site.
Now people are calling and saying, should I take my kid to school? I live in that area, and a whole bunch of deer are running out of North Park. And by that time, the sheriff's department is calling, state police are calling.
Then there was a year he convinced listeners there was an alligator in the sewer system and everybody needed to collectively flush their toilets to force it out. John interviewed everyone from presidents to porn stars, usually with a twinkle in his eye. He retired from the morning show in December 2001. His beloved wife, Pat, his sons, Tony, John, Mike, and Chris, friends and colleagues all packed the studio.
Hey, what I want to say to the people, thank you. It's been a great run. There's no question about it. So, thank you all. I'll talk to you on the night show or whatever, and it's been great, really. I love you all. Thank you. I'm John Cigna for the KDKA Morning News. Have yourself a great day.
We couldn't have said it better, John. It was a great run. Barbara Boylan, News Radio 1020, KDKA.
Oh, it's so great to hear their voices.
Absolutely.
And John was so gracious to me. He could be kind of a rough and tumble kind of guy, but privately to me, he was very encouraging because, it's tough to follow a legend like John Cigna. But one of the things he said that really stuck with me was, Larry, some of the best things I've ever done in broadcasting were in defiance of management.
KDKA AM and HD, KDKA FM HD2 Pittsburgh.
A radio.com station. This is a KDKA radio time capsule. Now, the CEO and president of the Heinz History Center, Andy Masek.
On November 2nd, 1920, in a shack atop a Westinghouse building in East Pittsburgh, KDKA Radio sent out the world's first commercial radio broadcast.
KDKA of the Westinghouse Electric and Manufacturing Company in East Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Forever changing the way Americans receive their music and news. On that day, eager radio owners tuned in their crystal sets to hear the 1920 Election Day results of the Harding-Cox presidential race.
We shall now broadcast the election returns.
Hours before the daily newspapers hit the streets.
Dr. Frank Conrad, a successful Pittsburgh amateur radio operator, and the Westinghouse Company made the commercial station a reality. KDKA was such a newfangled idea that its assigned call letters began with a K before the federal government standardized K for Western stations and W call letters for stations in the East. KQV, licensed in 1922, was also grandfathered in with its K designation. Listeners loved KDKA's regular broadcasts, and soon radio transmissions developed into an important form of mass communication and entertainment. Pittsburgh listeners were the first to hear live music, church services, boxing matches, and Major League Baseball games.
Let's hear it for the Pirates. Let's hear it for the Bucks.
Pittsburgh's success inspired more than 600 commercial radio stations around the country, and by 1927, Congress established the Federal Radio Commission to assign frequencies to broadcasters in order to avoid jammed airways. Thanks to Pittsburgh's radio pioneers, breaking news and the latest tunes became available to households everywhere. And the rest is history.
KDKA Radio, Jack Bogut.
Can I start over?
He's what morning is all about.
All about alarms ringing hours.
Time to wake up.
All about a full coffee cup.
Starting today with Bogut and Play and work in your car. Bogut is your morning star.
It's time to start your heart.
KDKA Radio, Jack Bogut.
Ah, yes. The voice of Pittsburgh, Jack Bogut, the first voice I can ever remember hearing on the radio.
Yeah.
And making that emotional attachment to.
I feel like I'm getting ready for school all over again.
638, this is 100.1 FM and AM 1020 KDKA Radio. I'm Larry Richert.
And good morning, I'm Kevin Battle on this big birthday, the 100th birthday of KDKA Radio.
And we enter a new century, and we welcome Jack Bogut on our Disc Institute of Pittsburgh Newsline. Jack, good morning.
Good morning to you guys. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to us.
Yes. It's a big day for the whole region. I think everybody should share in another great first for Pittsburgh and the entire world. And you were such a big part of that. And I want to make sure people understand you are Broadcast Legend Awardee this year with our Heroes event for the great charity work you've done over the years using your voice. But the one attachment that comes top of mind is Children's Hospital.
Yeah, that is absolutely, outside of family, that is absolutely the best thing that ever happened to me in broadcasting and maybe ever, because the magic of Children's Hospital was so complete that it just enveloped everybody that got involved. And the secret there was involvement. It seemed like the people of Pittsburgh, wait a minute, they're broadcasting for Children's Hospital? My kids aren't in Children's Hospital. We ought to go out and do something for the kids that are already there and see if we can't brighten their lives. So how are we going to do that? And they pulled out all of the stops in every way you can imagine and brought the money down and dumped it in the barrel. And we kidded each other and poked fun at each other and lied to each other and conducted fraud together by promising things that simply were not there. I was really thinking about this, doing all the things, Larry and Kevin, that we have been doing together with WDUQ and Duquesne University and Pitt and the Tribune Review and all these other sources. The very first thing that happened with the Children's Hospital broadcast, when we went in the windows, I had been so positive about Pittsburgh, absolutely loved the city, and was so amazed at the instant celebrity I found that was given to me when I got here, and how the audience responded to everything that KDKA did. I thought, I'm going to sound like a Pollyanna, really insincere, because I love everything about the city. I've got to find something to hate. So I decided to hate rutabagas. Is this going too fast? Okay, so, I got to talking about, hey, I ate a pierogi the other day and it had rutabagas in it. I love pierogies, but ugh, that was terrible. Pierogies are, that's animal food. I'm sorry, rutabagas are animal food. So we're in Kaufman's window, and a woman walked up. We weren't outside then. A woman walked up and waved at me, broadcasting in Kaufman's window, and she had a brown paper bag that she sat on top of the collection barrel. Okay, want to open that up and show me what it is? She shook her head no. And she smiled at me, and then she left. So the next person that came up, we had speakers outside, and I said, look, a lady just left that on the barrel. Would you open that up and see what it is? So they opened it up, and there was a big cream-colored purple rutabaga.
I don't know that I've ever tasted rutabaga.
Uh-huh. Well, then I said, would somebody please take that piece of vegetated garbage out of here? And nobody would take it away. And pretty soon cars are pulling up and they're honking their horns with the windows down, waving, enjoy your rutabaga, Jack. And they stuck me with it for 2 or 3 days. Well, if you can't get somebody to remove it for you, sell it. So then I started extolling the virtues of rutabagas and got people to bid on it, and Western Pennsylvania National Bank paid $5,000 for that rutabaga and had it bronzed, and it sat in their lobby downtown for the longest time. But that was what started this whole thing with the Slithery D and then the Farkleberries and everything else, was the audience poking fun at me and the radio station, all of us having fun with the audience. It was crazy.
Yeah, unbelievable. And, on our 100th birthday, sir, you break news that you still hate the Swedish turnip, known as rutabaga.
Well, but Jack, you were here on the air in 1970 for the 50th, and I understand it was a very big deal then, too.
Yeah, it really was. We buried a time capsule just outside our window. We were on the second floor in Gateway 1, and we buried a time capsule out there. I don't know whether the station ever removed that or not.
I think our brand manager, Jim Gracie, has it in his office. I think he took the bolo boards out of it, and there were all kind of things in there, whistles, and I don't know.
All the cool stuff ends in that office, you know that.
But, the 50th was a giant celebration, and kudos came in from all over America. And, just like they're doing now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's the talk of broadcasting today. It really is. It's amazing.
We actually got some kudos from our broadcast friends in England, Ray Clark, and he recognizes the significance of the achievement of KDKA Radio being the first commercial radio broadcasting facility in the world, and all that's emanated since. You are a giant part of the history of this station, Jack, and I'm so glad that you're still part of the family.
Well, I am really honored, and so many good things have come my way from people I haven't spoken to in a long time, and people that I don't even know who said, I used to listen to KDKA back then, and then they listened to Cigna, and now they listen to you, and the beat goes on and on. This is the best it gets.
Well, and your campaigns for the kids, it continues this day. I mean, you're still doing your commercial, the letter writing campaign for Presbyterian Senior Care as well from the kids.
Yes. Yep.
And I would think, Jack, that in everybody, it's so cool that when you think about it, there haven't been that many morning people in the history of KDKA
There's been
Radio.
More popes.
There's been more popes. Maybe, yeah. I don't know.
Well, that's because the station was very tolerant. They let us get away with a lot of stuff, but as you guys know, never disrespect for anything. And KDKA as an entity had to remain a pillar of integrity and information. If people want to know what's going on in the world, they tune to KDKA. If ever anything happened of real importance, we stopped playing music and stopped messing around and took care of that business. A really good case in point is back in the 1970s and early 80s, we did school closings live, and we stopped playing music. We stopped sports reports. We sometimes stopped the news because if it was a real emergency and people had to keep their kids home, that was the number one priority. And, the litany of saints.
And the saints come marching in, and your voice is the voice we
went
heard.
on forever.
We were thinking of having guest readers at one point for the Catholic schools and then the others, but you were the voice we heard. And again, we share this with you now on FM too at 100.1 FM and AM 1020 KDKA Radio. Jack Bogut, go to storytellerjack.com. He's got a great little Christmas story I think you should check out. Jack, thanks for the time this morning, and we'll talk again real soon.
Yep, good to talk to you guys, too. Happy birthday.
It was another presidential election 100 years ago today that coincided with the birth of radio news in America. KDKA Radio's Joe DiStio has the story.
The year was 1920.
This is KDKA of the Westinghouse Electric and Manufacturing Company in East Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We shall now broadcast the election returns.
And with that, the world's first government-licensed radio station informed a few thousand people on the results of the Harding-Cox election. Like others in the U.S. and elsewhere, Westinghouse engineer Frank Conrad had tinkered with radio on his home-built station, 8KX. His success spurred Westinghouse to make receivers, and that created the need for programming. And a new industry was born. Joe DiStio, News Radio KDKA.
1020 KDKA Pittsburgh.
We tried to find some music that dated back to 1977 that was a big hit when Trish Beatty took the airwaves here at KDKA Radio. I'm Larry Richert.
And good morning, I'm Kevin Battle. I would have picked Andy Gibb.
Andy Gibb.
Just want to be your everything. But you went with Dreams or Fleetwood Mac, so you're good.
Well, that seems to be resonating right now.
It's a popular song once again, isn't it?
Yeah, the Dreams are back. And joining us on our Disc Institute of Pittsburgh Newsline is Tap the Toe, and your boss won't know, Trish Beatty, who joins us now, 100.1 FM and AM 1020 KDKA Radio. Trish, good morning from Nicaragua.
Yes, sorry about the dropped call. It happens sometimes. Where was I? In a balloon? Was I in a hot air balloon when I fell off the airwaves?
Yeah, so when you came to Pittsburgh and joined KDKA Radio in 1977, you followed John Cigna. When I arrived, I was in between.
No, you are so wrong. When I arrived in 1970, I was the utility. I was hired as the utility person. I filled in for everybody during vacation. And I also had weekend shifts. And Joe Olzell was the afternoon fellow, and he left. And so I moved into the afternoon slot. So I was after Art Palin.
I remember
for many years.
Art Palin was here for 30-plus years. And
he was a lovely man, yeah.
Well, we just talked to Jack Bogut, Trish, and I know that you had quite a team back then in playing music. When I joined KDKA Radio, was December of '88, so I was on after
John. That was when Art retired, yes.
Yes, and after that, so I was on between Jack Bogut, or John Cigna rather, and you playing music.
That's right. Yes, the only thing I missed was Art Palin always used to greet me every day with a slightly dirty joke. And you almost never did. All your jokes were clean.
So many people wondering who listened to you for so many years and enjoyed, and I mentioned that Tap Your Toe and the Boss Won't Know, that was part of the promotion of you being on the air.
Well,
and thinking about it, where are you now? When people heard Nicaragua, they were probably like, did I hear that right?
Yeah, well, I'm happily retired. I live here in I live right on the Pan American Highway that goes through Nicaragua, all the way from Canada down to the tip of South. And I live with my and I have friends in Managua, and I have friends locally. I also tutor English writing at Kaiser University's Latin American campus, which is about 5 kilometers from my home. Although they're closed right now to classes because of the pandemic, but I still have students online.
Wow, that's really amazing that you've parlayed a successful broadcasting career into a wonderful life and a new life on different soil. Do you still keep in touch with Pittsburghers at all?
Oh, indeed I do. I have a very close friend, Phil, and I lost a wonderful friend a year ago, Bingo O'Malley, the wonderful Pittsburgh actor who was a friend of mine for many, many years, and that was a hard loss. But I have a sister and her husband who live in Greensburg, and so I guess if anything important happened, they'd keep me in touch.
Bingo O'Malley, you mentioned.
Not that anything important is happening these days, right?
Even though anybody, right, if anybody doesn't know Bingo O'Malley by name, they would certainly know his face because he was in so many productions. I also think of the late Harry O'Toole, who also ended up...
Yes, Harry O'Toole, rest his soul, one of the true, I think Jack Bogut wrote in, because I do occasionally read the Post-Gazette too, but Jack Bogut wrote a lovely tribute to Harry online and mentioned that he was just one of the true original Pittsburgh actors. He was just, amazing. He was so unique.
Well, full disclosure, he's the first person I actually met at KDKA Radio. He had a cigarette in his hand and he said, "What do you guys want?"
I have the same story, Larry. When I came to KDKA, I had just dropped by the station to drop off a tape a few weeks before. And I did that to all the stations in Pittsburgh. This was, where I was brand new in radio, no clue. And KDKA was the only station that responded. And when I went in for my interview, Harry met me in the lobby and took me upstairs. And he said, "I'm probably not supposed to tell you, but they love you."
I can hear him saying that, yeah. You would have liked Harry O'Toole, Kevin.
Absolutely.
And I was thinking of some of the people you mentioned, Art Palin and John Cigna, and you. Before we run out of time, you are credited with starting the spaghetti breakfast.
I was absolutely there in the office when that idea popped into my head. All I could think, what would be the most ridiculous combination of elements, with Cigna, who was just, a paisano from the old country practically, and the early morning. And all I could think of was, what would we eat for breakfast?
Well, I got to tell you, it's been still wildly successful, and we still carry on your tradition of the spaghetti breakfast. And
I'm delighted to know that, Larry. Thank you. That's great.
It's actually very cool. It's so good just to hear your voice. I haven't talked to you in many, many, many years.
The years really fall away, don't they, when these moments happen? I talked to Roy Fox a while ago, and the same thing happened, and I trust he's been involved in the 100th anniversary.
Yeah, we're going to have Roy Fox on right after the news coming up at 7:30, so in just a few minutes.
Well, you give him my best. Give him a birthday from me.
Well, great to hear your voice,
Trish. And to the rest of you as well.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And you share in the
You're very welcome, Larry. You're very welcome. It's a pleasure, and happy anniversary to all of the staff there. I think you're the only one left that was when I was there.
I may be. There were some people right behind me, but I'm looking around going, oh, my God, I think she's right. Trish Beatty on our Disc Institute at Pittsburgh Newsline. Trish, stay safe, and great to hear your voice.
Adios, mi amigo. Bye-bye.
Friendly people with winning ways who always make you feel so right at home. KDKA Pittsburgh, because of people like you.
One of the most iconic voices in my life was a great talk show host named Roy Fox. He had the Fox's Den from 75 to 85 right here on KDKA Radio, and he joins us on our Disc Institute at Pittsburgh Newsline, where he's still the Lord of the Manor in Jamaica, New York, at this fabulous place that he is, King's Manor. Is that it, Roy? Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, Rufus King Manor, named after one of the most important
founding fathers and has gotten lost in the process. But I'm just 81 years old and just getting started on reviving him.
You know, you were a rebel when you were on the radio, as I recall. Did you think of yourself as that?
Both my ex-wives will tell you I still am.
But you like to stir it up, and then I would hear these stories about you that you lived in an apartment with just a mattress. You were anti-material. You were not a materialistic type person, I heard. Is that true?
I have a 4,000 book library. That's all I need. Well, that and a Smithwick's or a Carlsberg, and that's it.
Well, you'd get along with a lot of people with a Smithwick's or a Carlsberg, and so you just have a radio, a couple of books, or a lot of books, and you're the caretaker
gave
of
my television away in 1982. I was crossing the bridge, going. I lived right across the river from where the station was, and a homeless guy had a room. But he was basically homeless, and I said, "Herb, what's up?" And he said, "It's my birthday." I said, "Great, what can I get you for your birthday?" He said, "Could you rent me a television set?" I said, "I can do better than that." Took him across the way to the apartment, unplugged the television set, gave it to him, and said, "Happy birthday." Mary came home that night, and I said, "Do you want to take a shot at what I did today?"
How'd that go over?
And haven't had television sets since '82. Yeah.
You haven't been missing much, that's for sure.
That's why. Hey, I will tell you, I got up shortly after 5. I just, what a kick this is. Shortly after 5 this morning, and my radio was tuned to WCBS here in New York, and it was telling the story of a radio station that's been on the air in Pittsburgh for 100 years. What a way to wake up.
That's so cool. And you are such a big part of it. When talk shows and podcasts now, everybody's doing their own, you were very groundbreaking in what you were doing, because you followed the days when Ed and Wendy King used to take calls, but you didn't hear the caller. They would tell you what the people said. You actually took calls.
Well, yeah, they would kind of tell you what the people... Wendy will tell you about the many times they were faking everything while this maniac was screaming on the other end.
I can still hear her voice. "Hi, Ed, it's for you."
What a sweetheart she was. Oh, my God. And you folks just had the lady Beatty, Trish Beatty, the best female voice I ever heard on the air, and she had a Sunday morning show to mix music, the likes of which I have never heard since. And the crazy lady she is, she's living in Nicaragua, one of the most dangerous countries in the world, and she calls me to find out if I'm okay here in New York.
Yeah, we just
if the world wasn't nuts before, it is now.
Do you ever Jones or miss being on the air? Do you want to get out there and talk again? Why did you leave?
2 reasons. I felt my time was up and it was time to move on. So did management. They were going to fire me.
We've all been there.
We're with Roy Fox, the Fox's Den. I can hear, though, you certainly have something to say, and that's what talk shows are all about, is letting other people weigh in as well. Because you took phone calls, but like any talk show, you didn't agree with everybody.
Okay, I have something to say. 4 blocks from where I live here in Jamaica, Queens, New York City, the President of the United States was baptized at the Presbyterian Church 4 blocks from here. That our president was baptized as a youngster, in my opinion, makes a great case that infant baptism is not valid. I think we should talk about that.
We will, right after this commercial break. Yeah, I would imagine right now with everything that's gone on, and Kevin, think about Kevin. He's a native Pittsburgher, but he moved back from New York in mid-February, and the world changed basically when you got here, Kevin.
Yeah, I moved into my apartment March 1st. I turned my back on New York City, and some say I was patient number 1 here in Pittsburgh, but I was not. I was germ-free when I left New York City.
How are you guys making out up there right now? Because we're hearing it's starting to go the other way again.
Well, it is on a small scale. Our governor and our mayor have done a terrific job.
But I don't know where it's going from here because the whole world now is going through this second term thing, and who knows? Here's why people don't understand what's going on, and I've written a sermon about this. We live in a secular age. What's going on is a biblical experience. And because we live in the secular age, we won't quite get it or even understand God's role in all of this. Yeah.
That's pretty profound. Is there anything...
Here was my my opening thing for the sermon that's titled Just When Things Were Going So. And it begins Times Square, alive with lights, not a soul to be seen. Central Park, springtime life, except not one human being. Park Avenue, so much road, so many buildings. Where did everyone go? Grand Central Terminal, tracks to everywhere. They're gone. Where? Vanished. Broadway theaters, showtime, silence. Yankee baseball. Baseball, strike it out. Churches, all of them everywhere closed. All of it empty, eerie, still. The quote is this: how solitary lies the city once so full of people, once great among nations, now become a widow. The words of the prophet Jeremiah. That is the first verse of Lamentations. Yeah, that's what's going on.
Where can we read more from Roy Fox?
The stuff is all sitting here on this desk. Hey, one of the best stories that I have from my time at KDK, the High Muckety Muck, it was owned by Westinghouse at the time. High Muckety Muck was coming through the station, so they cleared everyone's desk. Well, that may not be a big deal for most people, but look at this desk here. The secretary told me, she said, Fox, at the bottom of your desk was a calendar 3 years old. I said, so what? A few more years, the numbers will be in the right place. I can find everything on this desk in front of me today. You start putting things somewhere else, I'm lost. I went on the air in an outrage. I said, I don't know what kind of a day you had, and I explained the situation. I said, if the High Muckety Muck is listening to the show on his way home, I want to ask a question. If a messy desk is the sign of a messy mind, would you tell me what an empty desk is a sign of? We have one of them in the White House for at least another day.
Roy Fox, the Fox's Den, open for our 100th birthday. Roy, good to hear your voice. Thanks so much for taking time with us.
It's a pleasure. It was just great. And to all of the listeners that were there at the time, thanks for listening.
Wow. On our Disc Institute of Pittsburgh Newsline, love that.
1020
It was in the early 30s that KDKA hired a young man from Beaver, Pennsylvania, Ed Chauncey.
They said they would give us $10 a week if we would act out those little skits. And they would only last for about 5 minutes, but it was all part of the KDKA Kiddies Club. We had a lot of fun, but we at least got our foot in the door.